Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Clear Politics Takeaway for Thursday, July 29th. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RCP.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington bureau chief, in a very hot and steamy Washington today, Tom.
Carl, you're inside and you're not wearing your mask. What's going on?
You can wear a mask. You don't have to wear a mask, Tom, if you're inside your own home, fully vaccinated and alone, I think.
Well,
I think.
You think. But such is where we are, Carl. Mask mandates are back, apparently, including on the House floor. There was a letter today, I just saw it, that said Nancy Pelosi has instructed Capitol Police to arrest members of Congress who do not wear their masks. We had a situation yesterday where one of the members of Congress, Lauren Boebert from Colorado, was given a mask on the floor. She sort of threw it back in the face of the Democratic staffer who handed it to her. This is a big deal. Ted Cruz came out. A lot of Republicans are saying, look, we're not, this is junk science. This is politics. We shouldn't be doing this. I have a sense, Carl, that as mask mandates are being reimposed around the country in various places, that this is going to be, I mean, it was already a dividing line to start, but I feel like it's going to get even worse. There might be some real unrest and chaos surrounding this as it, I guess, some places put it into effect.
Well, Tom, you know my views on this. I don't think it should be a partisan issue. What the CDC and the president and Nancy Pelosi have done is not sort of arbitrarily just decide they love masks so much. There's the Delta variant that came out of India is now the dominant strain of this virus, this deadly virus, killed millions of people around the world. And the evidence that's starting to come in is that the vaccines aren't 100%. Well, they were never 100%, but there's uncertainty about how much being vaccinated protects you from them. And they seem to be, because the viral loads of the people who have this strain are so much greater than the previous viral loads, it seems more easily communicable. And I think what the leaders of the Democratic Party are trying to do is explain to people, look, we're not out of this. We thought maybe we were, we're not. And nobody wants to hear that news, but it really shouldn't be dealt with as a partisan issue. It ought to be dealt with as a scientific issue. And the science is unclear. We're all struggling to figure out what this means.
But Carl,
yes, sir.
Everyone was told, if you get vaccinated, you can return to life as normal. Millions, hundreds of millions of people in the country have done that. They are at lower risk of a much, much lower risk of getting even the Delta variant, right? We know the Delta variant, while you pointed out, it seems to be more transmissible. It is no more deadly. Doesn't seem to be
Tom,
in any way.
We're not sure of that yet. That the science, this is kind of new. Look, I don't mean to interrupt you, but people are saying, well, the CDC said this, now they're saying this. Well, we're learning new things. I mean, when did human beings become like, oh, you said something last year, so this year you can't say something different, so I'm not going to listen to you? Come on, that's not reason.
No, but Carl, if you're vaccinated, okay, right? And
which I am.
We're treating COVID. We're making the same mistake that we made the first time around, which was, right, 15 days to slow the spread, right? And suddenly it went from that to we have to stamp out every case of COVID all around the country. We're treating this way differently than we treat the flu, way differently than we treat other viruses, where you get vaccinations, right? A lot of different cases. And so I guess the point is, we're going back into the same cycle, Carl, it seems like. I'm not sure. I think we didn't do a very good job the first time around. So it is. And again, I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of resistance particularly from Republicans on these mask mandates. It's, as you mentioned, it was
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just going to say it became a partisan issue, I think, primarily because Donald Trump was president.
And it was an election year,
It was election year. Everybody was politicizing it. We are not in an election year. It should be less political, but I fear that it's going to be even more political this time around.
Well, I agree with you, but I would just say one other thing about it. We shut down the economy. That hurt people in my family. Seriously, ruined their family finances. It's not. I think what I think what the leaders of the country are trying to do, the health authorities, is make sure we don't do that again. And if wearing masks indoors in a workplace, especially, prevents us from having to have a lockdown, I think that's much preferable. And I hope it doesn't go back to what it was last summer or last spring, but this idea that we should do mitigating, actions so that we can keep our economy going and keep doing some of what we're doing, that makes a lot of sense to me. I was at a indoor party earlier this week, a cocktail party, and I had this, and was uneasy, and I haven't been that way for the last several months. And it reminded me, I went to, as you know, the Tampa Downs Derby in March of 2020, or first weekend of March. I remember thinking, this is probably the last thing I'm going to do like this for a while. And I had that feeling again. Now, that feeling doesn't come from, Joe Biden or Tony Fauci. That comes from what I'm reading about the Delta variant. And so if we have to ameliorate some of our behavior so that we don't have to, so we save lives and don't crater the economy, that's probably what we should do.
Do you think, Carl, part of that, what you're reading about the Delta variant, so there are, I think, lots of people who think the media is part of the problem initially was media fear-mongering and hysteria over this thing, and we're getting some of that same type of coverage. Do you think the media is covering this, has covered it, and is covering the Delta variant responsibly?
Well, if any story in which Donald Trump appeared, whether it was about the coronavirus or any other topic, probably wasn't fairly reported. That's just the way things were. I'm laughing about it, but I'm just kind of sad. But anyway, that shouldn't, as you said, he's not president anymore. The media, I don't think they root openly for Joe Biden. I think they're maybe covering this guy the way we should have covered the other guy. So I think the coverage is now, my guess is there's no real axe to grind, or not an obvious one. I think the reporters are trying to get the science of it right, but the science is unknown. We saw these stories from Israel where half the new infections were people who had been vaccinated. Well, that raises a question. Were they really vaccinated? If I'm working on Joe Biden's staff and I'm working in the White House and I get COVID, and the first question asks me, have you been vaccinated? Nobody likes to lie, but yeah, I've been vaccinated is the right answer there. So how many of these people really were vaccinated? And if so, what vaccine? And if once we know those two questions, then how deadly is it? These are the questions we need to know and we need to ask. And I hope the news media is up to the task of reporting what's learned.
Well, I'm gonna let that comment slide about the media covering Joe Biden the way that they're supposed to be covering our chocolate chip media. We can save that for another RCP takeaway.
What do you have against ice cream cones, Tom?
Right. But we also have this situation, Carl, right? Our kids are now going to go. I've got 5 kids, 3 of them, in grade school and middle school now, and they're going to be heading back to school, hopefully in person. I mean, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like if our district, which was pretty bad last year in terms of locking down, not letting kids in, not letting kids back, if they try and lock down the schools again, so these kids have to do hybrid learning. But let's just assume they go back full-time in-person learning. But they're going to be, wearing masks 24/7 now, everyone in school. That's the new mandate, I shouldn't say mandate, it's guidance from the CDC, but a lot of school districts around the country have accepted that as gospel now and are enforcing that, including our very own here. And so these kids are going to be consigned to wearing masks probably for the entire school year, because even though everybody in that school, all the adults, right, staffers, teachers, janitors, everybody will be vaccinated, and we know that the virus is not dangerous to kids. That to me, Carl, is another example, I think, of and they say, well, we're just following the science. That doesn't seem scientific to me at all. And in fact, I think it's harmful to the kids. I really do.
Well, now you've got me back to my old days as a local reporter, Tom. I covered the school board, but it wasn't in Chicago. It was in San Diego. Obviously these kids should be allowed to take their masks off for recess, let's say. And you'd hope that the schools would, instead of trying to sound punitive or, needlessly rigid, would understand what you're saying and make accommodations, common sense accommodations. But wearing masks indoors right now for the next month or two strikes me as prudent.
All right. We will leave it there. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of Real Clear Politics.
I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief, and this has been the RCP Takeaway for Thursday, July 29th, 2021.